In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
Seeing that everybody, gods of the world and mankind, says that nothing existed prior to chaos, I, in distinction to them, shall demonstrate that they are all mistaken. Because they are not acquainted with the origins of chaos, nor with its root. And here is the demonstration. How well it suits all men on the subject of chaos to say that it is a kind of darkness, but in fact it comes from a shadow, which has been called by the name darkness, and the shadow comes from a product that has existed since the beginning. It is moreover clear that it existed before chaos came into being, that the later is the posterior for the first product. Let us therefore concern ourselves with the fact of the matter, and furthermore, with this first product from which chaos was projected. And in this way, the truth will be clearly demonstrated.
The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hey, welcome to the Abracast. I'm John Towers. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. We're doing a Gnostic episode this evening, the untitled text on the origins of the world, coming right out of the Nag Hammadi Library. Translated by Hans Gebhard Bethage and Bentley Layton. So before we get started, I just want to remind everyone the new website is up, abracast.com. I had problems with my old host, which is shitty because they were like my website hosts for like 20-something years. But so I had to shuffle and rebuild and relaunch the website, and I did it in just under a week. It turned out pretty fresh. According to their the host statistics, I'm in the top 85 percentile on performance right now. So if you've went and checked out the new digs, I appreciate that. That number is partially you, then I would imagine. But yeah, there's all kinds of new goodies that are there and that are on their way there. One of the feature topic links are back up. They're actually, I just spent a little bit of time and updated them all. I don't know, before Friday. So Friday's episode won't be, anyhow. But I also launched a Discord channel. In the past, we've played around with Slack work groups and the Flick app. And I just found that this Discord server, I set it all up, and it does everything those other things did and more. So I set it up. I don't have very many rules and rights, and I don't have any admins on there. So if you're a Discord user, check it out. The link, the permanent invite will be in the show notes. Check out the t-shirts. I don't specifically have a t-shirt for this episode, but the Yaldil Boath t-shirt will fit nicely into this week's topic. He's the lion-headed serpent Yabble Boath, the demiurge. I'm sure we're going to talk about him a little bit, at least in this episode. This month's Fellowcraft episode is the final. I believe it's the final. It's the third part to the Count Saint Germain series that we've been doing. He's like this immortal dandy. Oh, they were fun. They were fun episodes. So there's tons of bonus episodes and Fellowcraft episodes and content on the Patreon and Subscribe Star. If you would consider supporting the show, that would be great. You can find all kinds of stuff out there, as well as the newsletter with the change in server and the change in hosts. The newsletter is going to be going through a little bit of a change. I'm still tinkering around with it. I don't know how significant the change is going to be, but still, it's like it's going to be once a month. Have some fun stuff on there. Oh God, I want to talk about what I have cooking so bad, but it's too early. I can't. I just can't. But you could subscribe right there on the website, or there's a link in the show notes to subscribe to that and to get into the Discord server. And you could go to the website, abercast.com, to go to the shops. Tarot cards are still up there and available, of course, and T-shirts are up there and available. And hey, well, you're looking, you're going to be in, I was going to say you're going to be inside more this winter. Anyhow, if you're running out of stuff to read, stop by the storefront and look into getting a couple of graphic novels or comic books. They're all available there as well. All right, so let's get to, speaking of Subscribe Star and Patreon, raise your glass and join me in thanking my Subscribe Star and Patreon supporters. Thank you, guys. My elbow's really been bothering. Back when I was wrestling, I elbow dove into a cement floor once or twice, and I chipped my elbow. And every now and again, something gets pointed in the wrong direction in there, and it really gives me a fucking hard time. And it's happening to me like right now. I'm having a hard time picking up my glass. I think I can make it still. Okay, we can do it. Hear that, kids? Don't elbow the fucking cement floors. All right, the Nag Hammadi Library, the untitled text on the origins of the world. Here we go. After the natural structure of the immortal beings had completely developed out of the infinite, a likeness then emanated from pistis, faith, and it was called Sophia, or wisdom. It exercised volition and became a product resembling the primeval light, and immediately her will manifested itself as a likeness of heaven, having an unimaginable magnitude. It was between the immortal beings and those things that came into being after them. Like she, Sophia, functioned as a veil, dividing mankind from the things above. Now the eternal realm, this aeon of truth, has no shadow outside it, for the limitless light is everywhere within it, and its exterior is shadow, which has been called by the name darkness. From it there appeared a force presiding over the darkness from the forces that came into being subsequent to them, called the shadow, the limitless chaos. From it, every kind of divinity sprouted up together the entire place, so that also shadow is posterior to the first product. It was in the abyss that the shadow appeared, deriving from the aforementioned pistis. Then shadow perceived that there was something mightier than it, and it felt envy. And when it had become pregnant of its own accord, suddenly engendered jealousy. And since that day, the principle of jealousy amongst all the eternal realms of the world have been apparent. Now, as for that jealousy, it was found to be an abortion without any spirit in it. Like a shadow, it came into existence in a vast, watery substance. Then the bile that had come into being out of the shadow was thrown into a part of chaos, and since that day a watery substance has been apparent. And what sank within it flowed away, being invisible or being visible in chaos, as with a woman giving birth to a child. All her superfluities flow out, just so matter came into being out of the shadow. And it was projected apart, and it did not depart from chaos. Rather, matter was in chaos, being in a part of it. And when these things had come to pass, then Pistis came and appeared over the matter of chaos, which had been expelled like an aborted fetus, since there was no spirit in it. For all of it, chaos was limitless darkness and bottomless water. Now when Pistis saw that it had resulted from her defect, she became disturbed, and the disturbance appeared as a fearful product. It rushed to her in the chaos, and she turned to it and blew into its face in the abyss, which is below all the heavens. And when Pistis Sophia desired to cause the thing that had no spirit to be formed into a likeness and to rule over matter and over all her forces, there appeared for the first time a ruler out of the water, lion-like in appearance, androgynous, and having great authority within him, and ignorant of whence he came into being. Now, when Pistis Sophia saw him moving about in the depths of the waters, she said to him, "Child, pass through to here," whose equivalent is Yabble-Boath. Since that day, there appeared the principle of verbal expression, which reached the gods and the angels and mankind. And what came into being as a result of verbal expression, the gods and the angels and mankind finished. Now, as for their ruler, Yabble-Boath, he is ignorant of the force of Pistis. He did not see her face, rather he saw in the water the likeness that spoke with him. And because of that voice, he called himself Yabble-Boath. But Ariel is what the perfect call him, for he was like a lion. Now when he had come to the authority over the matter, Pistis Sophia withdrew up to her light. And when her ruler saw his magnitude, and it was only himself that he saw nothing else except for the water and the darkness, and he supposed that it was he alone who existed. He is completed by verbal expression and appeared as a spirit moving to and fro upon the waters. And when that spirit appeared, the ruler set apart the watery substance, and what was dry was divided into another place, and from what he made for himself an abode, and he called it heaven. And from matter the ruler made a footstool, and he called it earth. Next, the ruler had a thought consistent with his nature, and by means of verbal expression, he created an androgyne. And he opened his mouth and cooed to him, and his eyes had been opened, and he looked at his father, and he said to him, "Ee!" And his father called him Yow, Eow. Next he created the second son, and he cooed to him, and he opened his eyes, and his father, "Ah!" And his father called him Eloi. Next he created the third son, and cooed to him, and opened his eyes, and said to his father, "Ass." And his father called him Astaphaeus. And these were the three sons of their father. And seven appeared in chaos, androgynous, and they have their masculine names and their feminine names. Their masculine names are Pronia, or forethought, Sambathius, which is weak, and his son Yao, his feminine name is lordship. Sabaoth, his feminine name is deity, and Adonios, and his feminine name is kingship. Elios, his feminine name is jealousy. And Orios, his feminine name is wealth. And Astapheos, his feminine name is Sophia, wisdom. And these are the seven forces of the seven heavens of chaos, and they were born androgynous, consistent with the immortal pattern that existed before them, according to the wish of Pistis, so that the likeness of what had existed at the beginning might reign to the end. And you will find the effect of these names on the force of the male entities in the angelic book of the prophet Moses, the names of the female entities in the first book of Neriah. Now the prime parent Yaldabaoth, since he possessed the great authorities, created heavens for each of his offspring through their verbal expression. He created them beautiful and as dwelling places. In each heaven he created great glories, 7 times excellent, thrones and mansions and temples, and also chariots and virgin sprites up to an invisible one and their glories. Each one had these in his heaven, mighty armies of gods and lords and angels and archangels and countless myriads, so that they might serve. The account of these matters you will find in a precise manner in the first account of Uriah. And they were completed from this heaven to as far up to the 6th heaven, namely that of Sophia. And the heavens and his earth were destroyed by the troublemaker that was below them all. And the 6 heavens shook violently, for the forces of chaos knew who it was who had destroyed the heaven that was below them. And when Pistis knew about the breakage resulting from this disturbance, she sent forth her breath and bound him and cast him down into Tartarus. Since that day in heaven, along with the earth, has consolidated itself through Sophia, the daughter of Yaldabaoth, she who is below them all. Now when the heavens had consolidated themselves along with their forces and all their administration, the prime parent became insolent. And he was honored by all the army of angels and all the gods in their heavens, given blessings and honor to him. And for his part he was delighted and continually boasted, saying to them, I have no need of anyone. He said, it is I who am God. And there is no other one that exists apart from me. And when he said this, he sinned against all the immortal beings who give answer. And they laid it to his charge. And when Pistis saw the impropriety of the chief ruler, she was filled with anger. She was invisible. She said, you are mistaken, Samael, which means the blind god. Okay, so I'm just going to stop real quick here for a second. Okay, I just need to take a note real fast. So she's calling him Samael, the blind god, because she understands that there are other entities in the universe besides Yaldabaoth, but Yaldabaoth is a blind and an idiot and a proud entity. He's a proud god, and he can only see the stuff that he the things that he creates is all that he can see. There is an immortal man of light who has been in existence before you and who will appear among your modeled forms. And he will trample you to scorn, just as potter's clay is pounded. And you will descend to your mother, the abyss, along with those that belong to you. For at the consummation of your works, the entire defect that has become visible out of the truth will be abolished, and it will cease to be, and will be like what has never been. Saying this, Pistis revealed her likeness of her greatness in the waters. In doing so, she withdrew up to her light. Now when Saboeth, the son of Yaldabaoth, heard the voice of Pistis, he sang a praise to her, and he condemned the father at the word of Pistis, and he praised her because she had instructed them about the immortal man and his light. Then Pistis stretched out her finger and poured upon him some light from her light to be the condemnation of his father. And when Saboeth was illuminated, he received the great authority against all the forces of chaos. Since that day, he has been called the Lord of the Forces. He hated his father in the darkness and his mother in the abyss, and loathed his sister, and he thought of the prime parent which moved to and fro upon the waters. And because of his light, all the authorities of chaos were jealous of him. And when they had become disturbed, they made a great war in the seven heavens. And when Pistis Sophia had seen the war, she dispatched 7 archangels to Saboeth from her light. They snatched him up to the 7th heaven, and they stood before him as attendants. Furthermore, she sent him 3 more archangels and established the kingdom for him over everyone, so that he might dwell above the 12 gods of chaos. Now, when Saboeth had taken up the place of repose in return for his repentance, Pistis also gave him the daughter Zoe, or life, together with great authority, so that she might instruct him about all things that exist in the 8th heaven. And as he had authority, he made himself first of all a mansion, and it's huge and magnificent, 7 times great as those that existed in the 7 heavens. And before his mansion, he created a throne, which was huge, and was upon a 4-faced chariot called Cherubim. And now the Cherubim has 8 shapes per each of the 4 corners: lion forms, and calf forms, and human forms, and eagle forms, so that all of the forms amounted to 64 forms. And the 7 archangels that stand before it, and he had in his 8th and has authority. All the forms amount to 72. Furthermore, from this chariot, the 72 gods took shape. They took shape so that they might rule over the 72 languages of the people. By that throne he created another, serpent-like angels called Seraphim, which praised him at all times. Thereafter he created a congregation of angels, myriads and thousands, numberless, which resembled the congregation in the 8th heaven, and the firstborn, called Israel, which is the man that sees God, and another being called Jesus Christ, who resembles the Savior above in the 8th heaven, and who sits at his right upon the reserved throne. And at his left there sits a virgin of Holy Spirit upon a throne, and glorifying him, and the 7 virgins stand before her, possessing 30 harps, solitaries, and trumpets, glorifying him. And all the armies of the angels glorify him, and they bless him, now where he sits upon the throne of light, with a great cloud that covers him. And there was no one with him in that cloud except Sophia, the daughter of Pistis, instructing him about all the things that exists in the 8th heaven, the 8th heaven, so that the likeness of those things might be created, in order that his reign might endure until the consummation of the heavens of chaos and their forces. Now Pistis Sophia sent him apart from the darkness and summoned him to her right, and the prime parent she put at her left. And since that day, right has been called justice, and left has been called wickedness. Now because of this, they all received a realm in the congregation of justice and wickedness. Stand upon a creature all. Thus, when the prime parent of chaos saw his son Sabaoth and the glory that he was in, and perceived that he was the greatest of all authorities of chaos, he envied him. And having become wrathful, he engendered death out of his death, and he was established over the sixth heaven, for Sabaoth had been snatched up from there. And thus the number of 6 authorities of chaos was achieved. Then death, being androgynous, mingled with his own nature and begot 7 androgynous offspring. Their names, the male one, jealousy, wrath, tears, sighing, suffering, lamentation, bitter weeping, and these are the names of the female ones: wrath, pain, lust, sighing, cursed, bitterness, quarrelsomeness. And they had intercourse with one another, oh yeah, and each one begot 7, and they amounted to 49. I got a drink to all that. Okay, so that they amount to 49 androgynous demons, and their names and their affects you will find in the Book of Solomon. In the presence of these, Zoe, who was with Sabaoth, created 7 good androgynous forces, and these are the names of the male ones: the unenvious, the blessed, the joyous, the true, the unbegrudging, and the beloved, the trustworthy. Also, as regards to the female ones, there are names like peace, gladness, rejoicing, blessedness, truth, love, faith, pistis. And from these are many good and innocent spirits. Their influence, their effects you will find in the configurations of the fate of heaven that is beneath the 12. And having seen the likeness of Pistis in the water, the prime parent grieved very much, especially when he heard her voice, like the first voice that called out to him over the waters, and when he knew that it was she who had given a name to him, he sighed, and he was ashamed on the account of his transgression. And when he had come to know in truth that an immortal man of light had been existing before him, he was greatly disturbed. For he had previously said to all the gods and their angels, "It is I who am God, and no other one exists apart from me." For he had been afraid they might know that another had been in existence before him and might condemn him, but he, being devoid of understanding, scoffed at the condemnation and acted recklessly. And he said, "If anything has existed before me, let it appear, so we may see its light." And immediately, behold, light came out of the 8th heaven above and passed through all of the heavens of earth. When the prime parent saw the light was beautiful and it radiated, and he was amazed, and he was greatly ashamed as the light appeared. A human likeness appeared within it, very wonderful, and no one saw it except for the prime parent and the Peronia who was with him. Yet its light appeared to all the forces of the heavens. Because of this, they were all troubled by it.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that, plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
Hey, remember to check out that Yaddle Boath t-shirt. It's pretty fresh, I gotta say. if you look at it in the symbology of it, it's kind of like an also as above, so below sort of icon. It's pretty cool. Check out the other shirts while you're there at abercast.com. When the Peronia saw that emissary, she became enamored of him, but he hated her because she was on the darkness. But she desired to embrace him, but she was not able to. When she was unable to assuage her love, she poured all of the light upon the earth. Since that day, the emissary has been called Atom of Light, whose rendering is the luminous man of blood, and the earth spread over him, Holy Adaman, whose renderings in the holy land of Adamantine. Since that day, all the authorities have honored the blood of the virgin, and the earth was purified on the account of the blood of this virgin. But most of all, the water was purified through the likeness of Pistis Sophia, who had appeared to the prime parent in the waters. Justly then it had been said, through these waters, the holy water, since it vivifies the all, it purifies it. Out of that first blood Eros appeared, being androgynous. His masculinity is Himeriris, being fire from the light, and his femininity that is with him, the soul of blood, is from the stuff of Peronia, which is very lovely in his beauty, having charm beyond all the creatures of chaos, then all the gods and their angels, when they beheld Eros, became enamored of him. And appearing in all of them, he set them afire, just from a single lamp. Many lamps are lit, and one and the same light is there. But the lamp is not diminished. And in this way, Eros became dispersed in all the created beings of chaos. And it was not diminished. Just as from the midpoint of light and darkness Eros appeared, and at the midpoint of the angels and mankind, the sexual union of Eros was consummated. So out of the earth, the primal pleasure blossomed. The woman followed earth, and marriage followed the woman, and birth followed marriage, and dissolution followed birth. After that, Eros, then the grapevine sprouted up out of that blood which had been shed over the earth. Because of this, those who drink of it conceive the desire of sexual union. Oh, yeah. After the grapevine, a fig tree and a pomegranate tree sprouted up from the earth, together with the rest of all trees, all species, having with them their seed and the seed of the authorities and their angels. Then justice created paradise, being beautiful and being outside the orbit of the moon and the orbit of the sun, in the land of wantonness, and in the east, in the midst of the stones and desires, in the midst of the beautiful appetizing trees, in the tree of eternal life as it appeared by God's will in the north of paradise, so that it might take eternal the souls of the pure who shall come forth from the mottled forms of poverty at the consummation of the age. Now the color of the tree of life is like that of the sun, and the branches are beautiful, and its leaves are like those of the cypress, and its fruit is like a bunch of grapes. When it is white, and its height goes as far as heaven, and next to it is the tree of knowledge. Gnosis, the tree of Gnosis, having the strength of God. Its glory is like the moon when fully radiant, and its branches are beautiful. Its leaves are like fig leaves. Its fruit is like the good, appetizing date. This tree is to the north of paradise. so that it might arouse the souls from the torpor of the demons, in order so that it might approach the tree of life and eat of its fruits, and so condemn the authorities and their angels. The effect of the tree is described in the sacred book, to wit, quote, "It is you who are the tree of knowledge which is in paradise, from which the first man ate, and which opened his mind, and he loved his female counterpart, and condemned the other alien likenesses and loathed them," unquote. Now, after it, the olive tree sprouted up, which was to purify the kings and the high priests of righteousness, who were to appear in the last days, since the olive tree appeared out of the light of the first Adam for the sake of the unguent, and they were to receive. The first soul, Psyche, loved Eros, who was with her, and poured her blood upon him and upon the earth, and out of that blood the rose first sprouted up out of the earth, out of the thorn bush, to be a source of joy for the light that was to appear in the brush. Moreover, after the tree, or after this, their beautiful, good-smelling flowers sprouted up from the earth, different kinds from every single virgin of the daughters of Peronia. And they, when they had become enamored of Eros, poured out their blood upon him and upon the earth. And after these, every plant sprouted up from the earth, different kinds containing the seeds of the authorities and their angels. And these the authorities created out of the waters, and all species of beasts and reptiles and birds, different kinds containing the seeds of the authorities and their angels. Whew, this is exhausting. All this to explain that. All of this is to explain how original sin isn't the thing that fucked the planet up. That's what this whole thing is all about. Or that the original sin wasn't Adam and Eve; it was Yaldal Boath. Back to it though. After all these, when he had appeared on the first day of the first day, he remained upon the earth something like 2 days, and left the lower Perona in heaven, and ascended towards his light, and immediately darkness covered all the universe. Now when she wished, the Sophia, who was in the lower heaven, received authority from Pistis, and fashioned a great luminous bodies in all the stars. She put them in the sky to shine upon the earth, and to render temporal signs and seasons, and the years and the months and the days and the nights and the moments and so forth. And in this way the entire region upon the sky was adorned. Now when Adam of Light conceived the wish to enter his light, the eighth heaven, he was unable to do so, because of the poverty that had mingled with his light. And he created for himself a vast eternal realm. And within the eternal realm, he created 6 internal realms, and their adornments, 6 in number. They were 7 times better than the heavens and the chaos and their adornments. Now all these eternal realms and their adornments existed within the infinity. Within the infinity that is between the eighth heaven and the chaos below. It being counted with the universe that belongs to poverty. If you want to know the arrangement of these, you will find it written in the 7th universe in the prophets of Hierelus. And before Adam of Light had withdrawn into the chaos, and the authorities saw him, and they laughed at the prime parent because he lied, and he said, "It is I who am God. No one existed before me." And when they came to him and they said, "Is this not the God who ruined our work?" And he answered, and he said, yes. If you do not want him to be able to ruin our work, come and let us create a man out of earth, according to the image of our bodies, and according to the likeness of this being, to serve us, so that when he sees his likeness, it might become enamored of it. No longer will he ruin our work. Rather, we shall make those who are born out of light our servants. So this is the rub. This is the really good part, actually. This is Yaldabaoth. I'm going to get through some of the flowery and purple prose here. So what he's done is he's become jealous of this discovery that there are more powerful and infinite beings than he. And instead of just being like, yo, but my bad, but look at all this messed up shit that I created. And look at all the messed up motherfuckers that I created that went on to create other messed up motherfuckers that created this whole fucking crazy world down here. They're bleeding all over everything, making trees and plants and beasts and fishes and stuff. This shit is crazy. So he comes up with a plan to trap these luminous beings. This is Yoda, right? Like, we are not of this crude matter. Luminous beings are we. When he's telling Luke about the Force and the Empire Strikes Back. So what he devises this plan where he's like, look, all you Archons here that helped me create all this weird messed up Earth shit right here. What we're going to do is we're going to go down and we're going to build a man out of dirt. And we're going to trap what happens is they wind up trapping these luminous, eternal beings into these bodies. Here, let's see if we can get to it. For all the duration of this eternal realm. Now, all of this came to pass according to the forethought of Pistis, in order that man should appear after his likeness, and should condemn them because of their modeled form. Their modeled form became an enclosure of the light. And when the authorities received the knowledge, gnosis, necessary to create man, Sophia Zoe, who is with Seboith, remember they were like kind of the good guys of these first sets of Archons, had anticipated them. And she laughed at their decision, for they are blind against their own interest. They ignorantly created him. They do not realize what they are about to do. The reason she anticipated them and made her own man first was in order that he might instruct their model form on how to despise them and thus to escape from them. Now the production of the Instructor came about as follows. When Sophia let fall a droplet of light, it flowed into the water, and immediately a human being appeared, being androgynous. That droplet she molded first as a female body, afterwards using the body she modeled after the likeness of her mother, which had appeared, and he finished it in 12 months. An androgynous human being was produced, whom the Greeks all called hermaphrodites, and whose mother the Hebrews called Eve of life, or Zoe, namely the female instructor of life. Her offspring is a creature of the Lord. Afterwards, the authorities called it beast, so that it might lead astray their modeled creatures. The interpretation of this beast is the Instructor, for it was found to be the wisest of all beings. So it seems like this is a conflagration between a Luciferian sort of figure, like the Lightbringer, the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and Eve. Now, Eve is the first virgin, the one who without a husband bore her first offspring. It was she who served as her own midwife. For this reason, she held to have said, "It is I who am the part of my mother, and it is I who am the mother, and it is I who am the wife, and it is I who am the virgin, it is I who am pregnant, and it is I who am the midwife, and it is I who am the one that comforts pains of travail. It is my husband who bore me, and it is I who am his mother, and it is he who is my father and my Lord, and it is he who is my force. What he desires, he says with reason. I am in the process of becoming, yet I have borne a man as Lord. Now these, through the will, the souls that were going to enter these modeled forms and the authorities were manifested to Sabaoth and his Christ. And regarding these, the holy voice said, multiply and improve. Be Lord over all the creatures. It is they who were taken captive according to their destinies by the prime parent, and thus they were shut into the prisons of modeled forms until the consummation of the age.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
Hey, did you learn something? Did you laugh? Supporting me is a way for you to be a part of the Abercast and ensure its growth and sustainability. It also means I can create a normal schedule for shows and bonus shows, as well as the exclusive Fellowcraft episodes. By supporting the show, you are not only a listener, but you are a part of the show. You supporting the show gives me a way to offer fun rewards as a thank you for showing your appreciation and support for our projects. Do you have an idea for a reward that you don't see? Let me know. My supporters are my partners. I currently pay for you to listen to the Abercast. Not only do I pay the hosting bills out of my own pocket, I volunteer my time and talent to each and every episode of the Abercast. The price of books, the time and resources of reading and researching, the massive amounts of gin and tonic needed, the equipment it takes to record the shows, the time and resources it takes to create the bonus material, and the cost to maintain the internet presence. Is it worth your support? I don't know. I am proud of the Abercast, and I feel like I'm improving all the time. In addition to creating the show that you dig and that you are excited about, I also have a full-time commitment and other obligations. So why financial support? All of the supporters help me focus my time on the quality and development of the podcast. And what if you can't afford, $1 or $3 or $10 or whatever a month? Believe me, I get that. There are many degrees of support, but if you can't support the show financially, please consider leaving a 5-star rate and review on your preferred podcast app. And don't forget that you could sign into the mailing list and still unlock a lot of bonus content. Thank you. I cannot put into words how much it means to me that you listen to the show each time I post a new episode. Your feedback, support, and love of the stories that we talk about here is what keeps me going.